Welcome to 1856 First Church, Pella, Iowa podcast.
Hello, my name is Bob Johnson, pastor of First Church, and I'm here with my friend Breanne Patel. How you doing today, Breanne?
I'm doing well, Pastor Bob. How are you today?
I'm good. This is 1856, our new podcast, episode 2 already. Well, last week we had the little technical difficulties in figuring everything out, so I don't think we had the listenership that we were hoping for.
Oh, I don't know. I think people were very intrigued.
Well, people were intrigued, and they could always go back and listen to that historic first podcast, but this is number 2. I think we've got it more in line, and probably more people will listen today, so we're glad you're here with us. Breanne, what do we have to talk about today?
Well, you have done another sermon on Revelation, and so I was hoping you could go back and give us just the highlights from the last few chapters that we've studied in Revelation.
Well, very quickly, I think it's important that we study all of the Bible, but Revelation definitely has some promises for the future that I think we need to pay attention to. We started this series in Revelation chapter 4. John is taken from the island of Patmos, which is still there outside of Greece, and he's taken up to the throne room of heaven, of which when you think about that, that's astounding. And he's taken and he's literally able somehow to see at least the glory of God, and he gives this clear description of what he's seeing. 24 elders, 4 living creatures, 7 torches. And so we have a lot there to look at and to interpret through the lens of Scripture. And then, of course, there's doxologies in chapter 4 and 5 because they're in heaven. They're continually praising the Lord. And what we see in chapter 4 is a doxology of creation. And then we go into chapter 5, and this scroll needs to be taken from God the Father's hand. And John begins to weep because there's nobody worthy in heaven, above, or beneath to open this. And he is then informed by one of the elders, "Don't weep, for the Lion of the tribe of Judah is here to open this." And one came out that looked like a lamb that was slain. And of course, this is Jesus. This is a significant event. When I think of the explosion of praise in heaven at that, it's tremendous. And thus would begin essentially the beginning of the end, as the judgments that were to take place now, really in Revelation chapter 6 through almost the end of the book, would now go into place. So that's chapters 4 and 5, and then this week we came up to chapter 6.
Yeah, you titled the sermon Anticipating the Unexpected, the beginning of the end, the Great Tribulation. Could you describe what the Great Tribulation is?
Yeah, I can a little bit. And, just the whole idea of anticipating the unexpected. Anybody who's been a parent, we'll teach our kids early on what some of the things that they're going to experience as they grow up, from maybe going to school for that first day or going to the park for the first time on their own. And you can teach them these things, and then they'll sometimes come back to you and say that something happened just like you said, but they had forgotten it.
Right.
Well, we teach our kids so that they hopefully can at least expect it and be somewhat prepared. So we teach this because we want people to be prepared for the coming of Christ. Most of all, the reason we teach this is because under the backdrop of the bad news of tribulation, the bad news of judgment, that we have salvation through Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This is why we teach this, because if we don't know the bad news, then how does the good news become good news?
Right.
So this is why we do that. There's a lot of debate about the tribulation. Some people think that right now we're living in a time of tribulation, of which there's no doubt there's tribulation in the world. There is famine right now. There is war. There is pestilence. There are natural disasters. All these things have really been happening throughout the history of humanity. But Jesus, in the book of Matthew, specifically at a time when his disciples asked him to teach about the last days, he refers to a time, some translations say tribulation, great tribulation. some refer to a time of distress. What I find most particular in this passage is that Jesus says there's been no time like it, and there will be no time like it in the future. That, to me, sounds like a great tribulation. Now, there's a whole lot more we can talk about that with regards to quantifying it. Many believe that that great tribulation is going to be 7 years. 7 years. And so, if it's 7 years, what's going to go on during that time? Well, when we start going into the 7 seals, and then the 7 seals lead into the 7 trumpets, and the 7 trumpets lead into the 7 bowls, these would be the events that would take place during that 7-year period of tribulation or great tribulation. And so that's where we started on Sunday, essentially the beginning of the end with the opening of the first seal. And of course, we did the first 4 seals on Sunday.
Right, yeah. And speaking of that, each one had a piece of symbolism in it. So your first seal, you talked about a white horse and what that represented. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, isn't it interesting that the Lord gives us such great imagery? Because it's like reading any good book. You know, when I think of some of the books that we read, or things like The Lord of the Rings or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, we remember these symbols so well. So here we have 4 horses that are going to initiate the judgment of God. And a white horse, as I said last week, you know, people didn't talk a lot about Revelation when I was growing up. And then some people talked to me kind of when I got to be an adult, and they said that white horse is Christ. And it just didn't make sense to me that that horse would be Christ, because here we've got these horses that are all bringing these forces of harm on the earth. And how could it be Christ if on one hand he's opening the seal, and then here comes a horse with him on it while he's opening the seal? Anyway, I really believe that that horse is a counterfeit Christ, not Jesus Christ. So when we go to Revelation 19 and we see Christ triumphantly returning on a white horse, and he's described as faithful and true, that is truly the Christ. So the white horse brings a sense of false peace. He doesn't have any arrows for his bow. And so there's false peace, false security, false religion, all that comes with that white horse.
Yeah, that's good. We also then touched on the second seal. And this one, the symbol was a red horse. And you had said it stood for war. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Well, sure. You know, the horses or these seals become progressive in nature. So 1 through 7, we're going to see a progression. They're going to get worse. And then we're going to move from the seals into the trumpets. They're going to get worse. And then the trumpets, they're going to get worse, all to the end. Well, from a false peace and security, boom, comes war. And that should not surprise us. As I said on Sunday, we've seen examples of this with world leaders, oftentimes dictators, rising to power under the false pretense of peace, and then they bring terror not only to their people, but often to other peoples as well. And so the horse is appropriately red, deep red, like blood.
And then we move on to the third seal, which was the black horse, and it represented famine.
Yeah, when you think of war breaking out on this scale, you can only imagine the implications of that. We saw even during COVID-19, different things happen that we've never really experienced. Maybe since World War II, when there was rationing of products, we saw disruptions in the supply chain. Good grief, everybody and their brothers, sisters, aunts, uncle went and bought toilet paper because they thought they were going to run out. But now this is so much more serious than that. Famine throughout the whole world. And even as it's described in this text in Revelation chapter 6, you know, people are going to be able to have barely enough for a day's worth of food. So again, we should expect this to be greater than has ever been seen before.
Well, and then we end on the fourth seal, and it was the pale horse, which you had is equaling death.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we do see a lot of death in the book of Revelation as judgment is met out. You know, this pale green color, the Greek word which we get chlorine and chlorophyll from, but this pale green, the color of disease and death. We've got death and Hades as it's described in Scripture, as if to say we've got the grim reaper followed by the grave digger. And so given authority to take 1/4 of the population of the earth. As I said on Sunday, if that was today and we have about 8 billion people, that would be about 2 billion. That's incredible. And so we've seen pictures of this in some way, shape, or form already in history. But Jesus says there's going to come a time so much greater than this. Mm-hmm. Again, salvation through Jesus Christ assures us of everlasting life in heaven.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned too, like I'm sure other people during parts of history thought it was coming based on their tribulation they were experiencing, thinking of Holocaust and different things like that. This will be much.
Yeah. A lot of people throughout history like to have thought that they were in this, and I want to be very cautious not to go there, and just to help prepare people so that the church knows that this is coming. This is coming, and don't quit your jobs. Don't do things like that. Paul even warned that with the Thessalonian church, but to be prepared and realize the urgency of going to all nations with the gospel.
Right. Yeah. There was something that I took as a note. Referring back, you said Revelation always refers back to other books, and one in particular you talked about all of this. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, Revelation isn't a book all to its own. It refers to so many other passages of Scripture. I gave a myriad of different scriptures on Sunday, and one of the most noted scriptures is what is referred to as the Olivet Discourse. In other words, Jesus was giving a talk to the disciples who were very curious about the end times. He happened to give it in the Mount of Olives, thus it got that little tag. That's not something that we get out of Scripture. And so as Jesus was explaining about this, as we look at the Olivet Discourse, and then we look at a chapter like Revelation chapter 6, we can attach strings to those sets of verses, because one seems to be now coming true here in Revelation chapter 6, of which, of course, is still yet to come. So there's a rich amount of things about the end times that Jesus speaks about with his own mouth in the book of Revelation. Of course, we have other passages in other gospels, as well as the prophets, as well as even from the lips of Paul, the apostle.
One other note that I had taken was you talking about the Antichrist and how he would come in the name of security. Would you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't talk a lot about the Antichrist on Sunday because, quite frankly, the text really doesn't bring that out. That's going to come out more in the future in Revelation. I believe that there's been many antichrists, shall we say small letter antichrists, throughout the history of humanity. But I do believe the Bible speaks to one that will come, that there'll be one main antichrist to come. And it would make sense that he would come under the false pretense of security, that he would rally people close to him thinking that he was going to do something good. Look at the world we live in now. People have an unbelievable amount of hope that they place in leaders. The world is going to get better if so-and-so's elected or so-and-so's elected. So it should come as no surprise to us that one might be able to rise up on a world scale and capture the hearts of people and then also turn on them. So stay tuned. There's more to come. But remember, the devil is the master of deception. Jesus said he comes to lie, to steal, and to destroy. And deception, it's going to be there. Look for it.
Yeah, that's so good. You had kind of mentioned it at the beginning too, but even on Sunday, you had said you can't share the good news if we don't know what the bad news is. And if you just said every Sunday we're going to talk about judgment, would people enjoy coming? So it's always good to know what the good news is waiting.
We have to talk about salvation all the time.
So what would you like to leave everyone with for this coming Sunday?
Well, we're not going to do 4 seals this week. We're going to do just one. We're going to do the 5th seal. We're going to talk a lot about martyrs. And this is quite a compelling issue because right now, there are many people who are being martyred for the cause of Christ in the world today. My wife and I receive a magazine every month from Voice of the Martyrs. And it's important for us to read that because here we are in a country, while there might be pressures and different hardships, nothing like pastors are dealing with in so many parts of the world. And so people and families, even as they accept Christ, their life is in immediate danger. Well, in this seal, we learn about people who have been martyred for Christ. And so we're going to unpack that. And I hope it's a real challenge for what it really means to deny ourselves, pick up our cross, and follow the Lord.
Yes, no, I'm looking forward to this. Has been a great series. So as we wrap up talking about the sermon, we hope that everybody will join us on Sunday. But I was wondering if there was any announcements or reminders that you wanted to give.
Yeah, you know what? It's a fun time of year. Everybody's talking tulips. You walk uptown today. I hear of people, of which I always chuckle at. There was traffic in Pella today. Traffic. Coming from the Los Angeles area where we spent much of our career. Yeah, okay, we had traffic today in Pella. The stoplights were backed up, 3 cars. Anyway, it's beautiful. I love all the people that come to Pella. I love to say hello to everybody I see on the sidewalk. And this is a great town. So obviously Tulip Time's coming up. We've still got a few blanks left in our calendar for our Tulip Time parking. I met with the people from Crossroads Ministries today. They're right across the street from us. They sponsor the big Clompin Classic. Yeah. There's going to be just a vast number of runners and walkers out here. So they kind of all gather on our church grounds here. It's for their kickoff. And so we're excited to be able to have that here. And the starting point is on one side of the church and the finish line is on the other. And that's very exciting.
Will you be participating?
I will be participating.
Okay.
But I don't run. I walk. I walk fast. It's kind of funny. Last time I ran, my wife said everything was moving but my feet. So I stay away from that. But then I'd never done one of these things until last year. And then a good man from our church, Denny Stainhook, he's a good guy. And he says, "Hey, are you doing this, Pastor Bob?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." And I said, I have no idea how long it's going to take me. And he says, "Well, surely you'll get it done in less than an hour." Well, I thought, I guess I will. Man, was I nervous because I thought I would let him down and possibly my whole church if I didn't get it done in less than an hour. So when I got my time, when I came through the finish line, I can't tell you how relieved I was that it was less than an hour.
Awesome. You going to try to beat that time this year?
I'm going to try to beat that time. Yes.
Well, maybe we'll
I'm
make
in
you a
training
shirt.
right now.
Okay. Well, we should make you a shirt. Follow me to First Church.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it would be like a billboard if I'm wearing it.
That's great. Well, anything else that we should remind people of?
Oh, well, hey, the tickets are sold out, but what a great night we're going to have here on Saturday night with David Phelps here in concert. It's going to be an absolute blast. And then, next week, we'll talk about this in our podcast next week some more, but all the things that go in and around First Church. We're so close to the square, which is fun because a lot of people pass by here. And we got bands that put on their uniforms downstairs in our basement. We got people that are going to come in and make baked goods for their booths out there. So I love Tulip Time and just all the people. And, I hope the light of Christ shines bright during this time. So, yep, that's
great.
That's what's going on. Anything going on in your neck of the woods?
No, I mean, had a really interesting speaker today. I got to listen to a individual who grew up in the Netherlands and moved here when he was 20. He survived World War II. And yeah, that was very interesting for my kids.
That's awesome. And that was in your Classical Conversations homeschool group?
Yes, it was. It was a great-grandfather of one of that attend our Classical Conversation.
Well, that's very, very exciting. You know, with 6 kids, you've got to have excitement every day.
Well, I think it's important for them to know history.
What a joy to go home to those children. I go home to a beautiful wife, a lazy basset hound, and a spastic cat.
I think they're probably just as entertained.
Well, not quite, but I get it. Well, Breanne, thanks again for today. And hey, we hope a few people listen to this week, and we'll catch on as time goes on. But thanks for joining us for the 1856 First Church podcast, and a closing word from you, Breanne.
Yes. Well, there's something to be said. Dairy Queen and our church have something in common. Do you know what that is?
I don't know. Oh, that's awesome. Very good. And so we'll see you on
Sunday at 9:30.
All right. God bless you all.